Welcome to episode 4 of The Mysterious Twins. This is the episode 4, so if you are yet to follow the story from episode 1 to 3, the links are in the description below. Kindly go through them so that you can be able to follow the story. So we began the story by how these mysterious twins were conceived by their parents in the village of Mambili. Evidently, the parents made use of dark magic because, according to the author of magic, they were not supposed to have children of their own. And not only did Nympha and Leop had a child, but they actually had twins, which was impossible to have in the village of Mambili during those days. So as a result, the elders in the village of Mambili had to gather and make a critical decision to send this couple out of the village so that they don't bring a deadly repercussion upon themselves and the village entirely. After being banished from the village, the couple, along with their twins, had to navigate through the forest all by themselves and eventually, by way of luck, came across an abandoned building where they settled and built their home. This was where they lived for 12 solid years before something dramatic happened to the parents. So one day, the twins came back from the village and found their parents lying on the floor, not really understanding what has happened to them. After struggling for so long without wanting to admit what has happened, the twins had to eventually come to the painful conclusion that indeed their parents have been murdered. That eventful morning, after burying their parents, the girls went straight inside the house and slept for several hours. The pungent smell hadn't left, of course, but it wasn't as deadly as it when the bodies were in the room. And so they lived for several days, occasionally going to the farm, but spending most of their time together in the house. One day, after returning from the farm, Nana suggested that they open Father's inner room and clear the place. During Father's days, he spent most of his morning in the inner room. No one was allowed to enter the room. But the girls were sure they'd seen Mother enter the room before. Of course, with Father's approval. But the girls had been told that under no circumstance were they to enter the room. It was where Father made cleansing for the family. At least, that is what they were told. The girls entered there, the cleansing, of course, might be reversed. This was why Nanre and Nana didn't bother to open the room even when they cleaned up the house after the demise of their parents. But after several days of silent anxiousness, the idea to know what exactly was inside the room suddenly groped in the girls. After all, there was no cleansing happening there anymore. At least not for a long time now. Whatever Father did inside that room would by far have disintegrated. The place itself needed to be cleansed. Forcing their way into the room was not as difficult as they'd anticipated. The four corners of the room stared back at them. Small. The room was very small and dark, except for the rays of the sun which crept into the room through the opening. At one corner stood a table that the girls had never seen before. On the table lay several pebbles and small stones. A small bowl sat at one corner of the table. The bowl was filled with fresh sand. Under the table, a dead lamp sat gently. Nana quietly walked in and studied the room. At another corner, a black overall hung on the wall. Other than that, the room was vacant. Though the notion that there should be a chair for the fact that there was a table could have been advocated for. But then the girls didn't even know what to think. "What is that?" Nanre asked as she stepped in after her sister. She was staring at the bowl on the table. "I don't know. I think it is sand," Nana replied. "Sand? I don't know." Nana dipped a hand in the bowl and fetched a handful of sand. It warmed her hand with a twinkling sensation. "It is sand," she declared. Nanre moved over to the black overall and stared at it for a very long time. She hadn't seen father in it before. Was it that father used it in the cleansing for the family? She gently ran her left hand through it. Dust escaped from the part of the cloth she had touched with her fingers. "Bring it down," Nana ordered. "You don't know what this is, do you? But it is father's clothes. Have you seen father in it before?" The younger girl didn't bother responding. She moved over and removed the clothes from the wall. The thing looked a bit taller than she was. Clearly, father wore this clothes. She lost interest in the clothes and handed it to Nanre, and then she moved back to the table. The sand interested Nana with great fascination. What would father be doing with sand in his private room? The pebbles threw even greater questions at them. Why wearing the pebbles inside the bowl with the sand? The kind of cleansing father did here was still not clear to the girls. "I think we should get these things out of this place and clean the room," Nanre suggested. But the younger girl didn't respond. She kept dipping her hand in the sand and acting as though she derived some form of pleasure from it. When Nanre declared that she would burn the overall gown, Nana objected with reflex. Her argument was that they couldn't burn father's clothes. "Father is no more. What do you think we will do with this clothes?" Nanre said. "Just leave it. It is father's property. If you can't look after it, then I will." They brought out the bowl as well as the table and everything except the overall. They lived after that day in a single direction. As far as they were concerned, they were the only two people in the surface of the earth. Though they could not deny the fact that they knew that there were other people living in some faraway places. They simply didn't bother about it, simply because father and mother didn't bother about it while they were alive. At age 16, Nanre started considering the possibility of going into one of those faraway places. No doubt that her emotions were growing beyond what she could handle, and she fully expected the same from her sister. When she mentioned the idea of going out of their environment to Nana, the younger girl gave her the "are you out of your mind" look. Those people murdered their parents, she reminded her sister. Nanre waved the notion from her mind and didn't raise it again for 1 full year. Meanwhile, they kept paying respect to their parents in whatever way that came to their mind, most of which were suggested by Nana. One day, the younger girl awoke and suggested that they dig another grave and separate the bodies. Nanre received the absurd suggestion with great amount of shock. "Why?" she had asked with confused expression. "I don't think they are comfortable being together like that." "And what makes you think something like that?" "I just felt like we should give each one of them a separate room." Nanre told her that she was being superstitious, like some people in those faraway places. That aggravated Nana to no end. She rushed outside and sat beside the grave. Why would her sister compare her to those evil people? Nanre knew she had pulled a trigger inside of her sister, and she quickly sought her forgiveness. She didn't mean it that way, she explained. She just wanted her to know that it would be absurd to dig up a grave of about 4 years. It would be like invoking the spirit of their parents. She further explained. The matter was settled and nothing was said about it again. But on another occasion, Nana suggested that they decorate the grave. This, of course, Nanre could not object, but it made her started thinking her sister was gradually going ballistic. She wondered where all of these ridiculous suggestions were coming from. One day, Nanre returned from the farm and saw her sister digging just beside the grave. "What are you doing, Nana?" "I am digging a grave for mother." "I thought we talked about this." "Yes, but I kept having this feeling that they need separate rooms. Nanre slowly walked towards her, collected the two, and embraced her warmly. They wept that day like they hadn't wept before. After a long while, Nana apologized for going against their agreement. She just wanted the best for their parents, she explained. Nanre told her she understood, but their parents were doing just fine wherever they were. Digging another grave wouldn't bring them back. They needed to move on with their lives, and they needed to live in such a way that their parents would be proud of them. At 17, Nanre presented the suggestion of exploring the wider world to her sister again. The younger girl objected. She even said that she would kill any human she saw around, that they had the guts to murder their parents. As a result, they were not worthy to come in contact with. But Nanre couldn't deny the emotions welling up inside of her. She couldn't continue living like this. She needed people to speak with. She needed to see life for what it was meant for, and not just this secluded part of the world. She needed a man like mother needed father. She needed to have children of her own, and that wouldn't happen except there was a man around. That much she knew. All of these things put together kept flaming her urge to explore the world beyond the forest. 2 months of daily persuading her sister only made the idea worse. In fact, Nana started developing some kind of hatred towards her sister for considering leaving their parents and mixing up with the murderers of their parents. One evening as they ate their supper, Nanre expressed to her sister that she needed to leave the forest, and she needed to leave soon. Nana told her that they were going nowhere, that she didn't expect them to leave their parents behind. Their parents were dead, Nanre reminded her. Yes, they were dead, but their bodies were somewhere inside the ground just outside the house, Nanre mentioned. Would they leave the bodies behind? Nanre argued no longer after that. She finished her supper and quietly went to sleep. 2 days later, she informed her sister that she would have to go into the world, if not for anything, at least to satisfy her curiosity. She would be back in a matter of days. Nana didn't object at this time. The older girl had simply made up her mind. She would allow her as long as she wouldn't come back and force her to go back with her. How many days would you be spending? Nana asked. I don't know. It depends on how long it takes me to find people. And so they started preparing for Nanre's journey. They had no idea how long it would take to discover the nearest village close to them. But they assumed that if people could have access to their parents, then perhaps the nearest village was not that far. You will come back, right? Nana asked for the umpteenth time as Nanre prepared to take off. I will, of course. That morning was one tough morning for both girls. It was like a fragment of each one of them was being divided and thrown into the ocean. As much as Nanre loved to be with her sister, she needed to leave. Nana, in the same vein, felt as much pain as her sister. As much as she would love to forever stay with her sister, she couldn't afford to leave their parents behind. In fact, she couldn't afford to live in the midst of the evil people who murdered their parents. When Nanre was setting off, she promised for the last time that she would return in a matter of days. But she didn't return in a matter of days. In fact, she never returned. It was the last time the girls would set eyes on each other. The single most catastrophic mistake Nanre made was to leave her sister behind. In fact, leaving her behind was an irredeemable mistake. And so, what happened to Nana? What happened to Nanre? What eventually happened to the both of them? We continue the story in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed the story so far. And I'm sure you're wondering how this story turned event and of course change the future. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, so that you can get more episodes about Nana and Nanre, the mysterious twins. And of course, to allow more people to be able to see the video and to get to learn about African folktales. Thank you so much for joining us so far. I hope that we have been able to add value to you in this story. Please look up for the next episode. Gracious.